Hi everyone, my name is Chris. I'm going to show you how to sandbox your Claude Code when you're running it on Windows. This will involve installing Windows Subsystem for Linux. If you're on this video, I'm assuming you already know why to do so, but essentially sandboxing will allow you to control what Claude Code can access in bash commands. So this will let you restrict it down to a specific folders or files and restrict the domains it can access. So this will be helpful if you're, say, running Claude autonomously in a Ralph loop, or if you're trying to create a stable environment for agents and preventing them from accessing data they shouldn't be and cheating on your evals. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to install the Windows Subsystem for Linux, otherwise known as WSL. So in PowerShell, you're going to want to run this command, WSL install. And this will download Ubuntu, which is a Linux distribution. So we'll download that by default. I also want to point out, so once it's downloaded and installed, it's going to ask you to create a default user account. Make sure you remember this password that you're going to put in because you'll need it later for installing Claude. You've installed Ubuntu. Open it up you can open it up from your Windows search bar or from Start menu. You should get a Ubuntu app, and you can open up command prompt for that. Now, once we're here, we're going to need to install a couple of dependencies that enable sandboxing with Claude Code. So you're going to type this command, sudo apt-get install, and then we're going to install bubble wrap and socat. Once again, you're going to need your password that you set when you first installed Ubuntu. Set yes, and we'll have that installed. Next, we'll go ahead and install Claude Code. So you can either do this with npm or with a native installer that Claude and Anthropic provide. I'm just going to use that installer, so I'm going to copy this curl command and get it installed. I'm going to assume if you're watching this video, you already have set up an account either through a Claude subscription or, say, with API usage. So once you have installed that sandbox runtime, I'm going to actually move over to VS Code to do the rest of this tutorial. So VS Code provides a WSL extension published by Microsoft that you can use to remotely connect to your Linux environment. So we're going to use that. Let's go ahead and connect to our WSL using distro. We're going to select Ubuntu. So this will establish that remote connection to our Linux environment. And great, we're here. It's all WSL extension, and we're in VS Code in our Linux environment. We're going to go ahead and make a project and have a .claude folder in that project. Once we're there, we can add our settings.json and configure our sandbox. So there are a few things you could dig into with the sandbox, but I'm just going to show a simple example one where it limits reads and writes just to the current directory for the project, as well as only allowing example.com as a domain to hit over the network. So I just went ahead and pasted these settings in here. You can see sandbox enabled is true. Important ones to add would be allow unsandboxed commands as false, so that it doesn't fall back to running commands unsandboxed. Also auto allow bash if sandboxed, so you can have that setting just to make things easier, especially for, say, interactive overview and non-interactive coding. It'll just know it'll allow the command if it's sandboxed. I also have the allowed domains here, and you can see in line 17, I have example.com set. All right. Moving on from that, we can then set our sandbox mode by running Claude and then running the /sandbox command. So I'm in this directory. I'm going to run Claude. Right, so now I'm signed in. Claude Code is running. You want to make sure that you're seeing this your bash commands will be sandboxed message right here. This means that any bash tool calls, as well as anything we write in bash mode in Claude Code, will have the sandbox applied to it. So for example, that means we can check whether we can read this file from outside of the project directory. We can also try doing a curl on example.com and github.com and see the difference. So let's try that. First, I'll go into bash mode, and you'll see if I do cat hello.txt, it'll say no such file or directory. It can't even see it. Just to show you that it does work, from my sandbox project, same file location, we can run cat hello text, and we can actually get the content of that file. So this shows you that, again, it's only can read directly from the project it's specified in your sandbox settings. Right? You can also see the same thing for curl. So we're going to allow curl to go to example.com, and we'll get some results back. But if we, for example, tried github.com instead, it's going to know that this network request is outside of the sandbox, meaning that if you were not interactive running Claude Code, then you would know it's just not going to be able to do this. Or it would prompt you if you were running this interactively, but again, if you're running evals, if you're running a Ralph loop, it's just not going to be able to do this. So you're now able to run Claude Code in the sandbox on your Windows machine. So again, you're going to install WSL, get your Linux environment set up with bubble wrap and SOCAT, install Claude as well as the Anthropic Sandbox runtime. Optionally, you can set up VS Code with the WSL extension so you can connect to that Linux environment. Then you're going to configure your sandbox object in your settings.json. You should probably do this on a project level basis, is what I would recommend. And then once you have that, you are off to the races with a Claude Code that is now sandbox based on how you configured it. You might need to also run the /sandbox command within the Claude terminal interface just to make sure that you have your settings all squared away. A few notes on sandboxing. So again, it's a separate environment, so you're going to need to reinstall dependencies, for example, like your Python libraries, any special CLI commands, etc. And sandboxing also, again, only applies to the bash tool that Claude uses, meaning that built-in file tools like read, edit, and write are not going to work with sandboxing. Instead, you'll have to use Claude's permissions within settings.json or other mechanisms. That is it. I have some resources down here if you want to learn more about sandboxing, the Claude Code settings, installing and working with WSL, etc. Thanks for watching.